Welcome to ATV Special Broadcast. I'm Elizabeth Morton here with Dr. Albright. Dr. Albright, thank you so much for being here tonight.
It's great to be with you, Elizabeth.
Thank you. So let's just get right into the questions. You attended Wellesley, an all-women's college, in a period when female college students were expected to become housewives after graduation. During your time at Wellesley, what were your expectations and career goals, and how did those change?
Well, I always knew that I wanted to do something in international relations. I was a poli-sci major, took a lot of history. I wanted to be a journalist. I was one of the editors of my college paper. I did get married 3 days after graduation, and my husband was a journalist. And while he was in the Army, I worked on a small newspaper in Rolla, Missouri, and I thought, perfect, I was getting trained. And then we moved to Chicago, where he was a reporter on the Chicago Sun-Times, and we were having dinner with his managing editor, and he said, "So what are you going to do, honey?" I said, "I'm going to work on a newspaper." And he said, "I don't think so. You can't work on the same paper as your husband because of labor regulations." And even though there were 3 other newspapers in Chicago at the time, and he said, "You wouldn't want to compete with your husband, so go find something else to do." I do know what I'd say today, and I can imagine what you would say, but at the time I kind of saluted and went and found another job.
Okay, and what was that other job?
Well, the other job was, believe it or not, at Encyclopedia Britannica, which is a book. And one of the things that they did at that time was to review certain articles every year. And that year they were doing geographical articles. And because I was a poli-sci major, they figured that I could understand the geographical articles and find art for those. So that's what I did. And then we left. I was pregnant with twins. And they were preemies, and it was very difficult, and I took Russian while I left them in the hospital, and that made me want to go back to graduate school.
So today, college women don't face nearly as harsh expectations, but still face a myriad of other gender-based challenges, both at university and in the workplace. What advice can you give to young women in their academic and professional lives who hope to pursue a male-dominated field?
Well, I think the most important thing is to really get a good education and work hard. You cannot just kind of slip by. I think that this is one of my favorite lines. I always say there's plenty of room in the world for mediocre men. There is no room for mediocre women. And you have to know that you have to work at least twice as hard, and that nothing comes easily. And you also have to be willing to start at the bottom in a variety of jobs and basically be able to be responsible and do what you're asked to do. So I always talk about the fact that I Xeroxed and made a lot of coffee, and ultimately I got terrific jobs. And I really was very lucky because I was in an era where I got my PhD and I was Dr. Albright. And so even though I was older than a lot of people that worked on Capitol Hill, when somebody wanted the one woman on their staff, then I really did have the credentials to do it.
Being a woman in the 70s and 80s in the workplace, can you just speak more to how you did get so far and get so successful in the federal government?
I know you're not supposed to say it was luck, but a lot of it was people that I got to know. One step led to another. So I had done fundraising for the school where my children went, and the person that I worked with was asked to do a fundraising dinner for Ed Muskie. I ultimately was successful at that. Then I went on his staff. Then what happened was Zbigniew Brzezinski had been my professor at Columbia, and he asked me to come and work at the White House on the National Security Council staff doing congressional relations because I had understood how Congress worked on foreign policy. And it really, step by step, it was a matter of working hard and living in Washington and getting to know people that could see that when they asked Madeleine to do something, I actually did the job.
Would you say that networking was a key part of that as well?
Very much so. And I think that part of the thing is women are really good at making friends and not so good at networking. Men are better at networking. And I think we have to understand that we need to network. But this is the issue that is always very hard, I think, especially for young women to understand. And truly the most famous statement I ever made was that there's a special place in hell for women who don't help each other. And part of it had been that there was the queen bee complex. If there's only one job, then it's going to be for me and not for 2 of us. And I've learned that what we really need, there has to be more than one woman in the room, and we really have to help each other to get ahead.
Fellowship among women is a key.
Very much so, and I think understanding that we're better off. I mean, I happen to like working with men, and I like men, and we need to have co-ed life in government, and it's much better when men and women work together. And so I do think that women need to help each other. I think there's a certain sense of also kind of projecting self-doubt. One of the things that I've learned, because I've been asked to do a lot of studies about women in federal government, is that some of it's the system, but some of it is that we have self-doubt as to whether we can do the job. And I think women have to be very proud as they develop resumes to say, yes, I can do that. Yes, I'm qualified. Yes, I want that job.
Going back to Women's Fellowship, so you're an honorary member of Delta Phi Epsilon. We have one chapter here at AU. It's a foreign service sorority for women. How important do you think that is in women who aspire to be diplomats?
Well, I do think having a support system, whatever it is, in terms of various groupings where women can help each other and share experiences and support each other for promotion or just for the self-confidence part. Let me just say this, though. I have 3 daughters, each of whom has a very big job. One is a judge. One is head of the Global Partners for Education, and one is head of the San Francisco Child Abuse Prevention Center. They are all 3 of them are married, all 3 of them have children. And it is multitasking. It is not simple, trying to figure out, where you should be. I always say every woman's middle name is guilt, because you're never quite in the right place. But the bottom line is you have to work hard, and you have to understand that multitasking is an important part of it.
Is there any advice you have on balancing that work and home?
Very hard. It is very hard. And I think that the thing that I've always said, a woman can do everything, but not necessarily all at the same time. And there are many advantages to being a woman, and one is that our life comes in segments, and we can do different things at different times. Men actually get bored in their jobs often and want to change. Women can take certain time out to have children and then change careers, and it doesn't look like you just can't make up your mind. But I do think we need to there are a lot of advantages to being a woman, and we can do everything, but it's very hard to have exactly the work balance at all times. And by the way, men are noticing that too, and the thing that has happened is the younger men also want life balance and work in their lives and are more interested in being with their families, and so I think that it's going to happen more in the workplace.
What can we just as a society do to help support these women and these younger men to have more gender equity in the workplace and just in the federal government in general?
Well, I think that employers need to respect that more and help in terms of not penalizing somebody if you take some time off, or developing ways of partnering in jobs and doing telecommuting and a number of different ways that work now, childcare. So I do think that there have to be more policies that are aimed in that direction. Family is very important, and trying to figure out how to do the life balance is important.
Thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much for speaking with us tonight. Once again, this has been Elizabeth Morton for ATV Special Broadcast.